Good morning. Good morning. Big surprise to see me here twice in 1 week. And we have a very special edition here of the podcast. For those of you that don't know, we have a trip planned to Egypt in March of 2026. And so I'm bringing Mary, our local Egyptologist, who will be guiding us over there in Egypt to fill us in a little bit on this trip and what to expect there, why you should go with us. And I have to say, as this will be my third trip, and on my first trip, someone said, like, once you go and you've drank the water here, the water will pull you back. And I laughed at them. And but Egypt does keep pulling you back. And I don't even know how many times Mary has been pulled back there, probably more times than she can even count. But I just am super excited to have you on the show here today, Mary. And why don't you give our audience a little bit of a breakdown of who you are and why we go to Egypt with you?
Well, first of all, happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas, all the wonderful holidays that are included in this time of the year, and Happy New Year. I would say go to Egypt because if one of your New Year's resolutions is to go see Egypt, come now because it's a perfect time. March is a really good time. The weather's great. And why you want to go, well, I'm not only an Egyptologist. I've also been an astrologer for 35 years, and I have been going to Egypt for 35 years. I've lived in Egypt. I went to school in Egypt. I have a degree in Egyptology. I've been doing metaphysical, esoteric goddess work for at least 25 of those 35 years. And so there really isn't much about Egypt that I haven't covered. I've been like everywhere, and I know a lot of people and have a lot of infrastructure built within the idea of trips to Egypt. And again, these aren't trips. They're not vacation tours. They're not bucket list tours. These are more like, well, all metaphysical tours and spiritual tours give you the esoteric background to Egypt. But why you would want to go with me specifically, as opposed to some other tours, is that the goddesses and these temples that I've been in, sometimes all by myself in some of these temples over the years, they talked to me, and one of the things they said was like, go back for spring equinox 2026, because there is an incredible opening, a portal opening that has to do with the astrology that hasn't happened on this planet. It's like a quantum leap in terms of our evolution. So I know you hear that all the time if you watch astrology podcasts or you listen to astrologers, but this is really something. And something about the Giza Plateau, which is ground zero. Okay, it's like if we're talking about the vortex of ley lines and energy that emanates all around this planet, and anyone who's involved in esoteric or metaphysical work understands that. This idea of that center point of planet Earth having to do with land masses after Atlantis and all of these incredible things that went on back before recorded history. The Great Pyramid stood there, and the Sphinx is the guardian. And so we're looking at this idea of the Aquarian age coming in now, specifically with the planet Pluto in Aquarius, the final turn of the wheel, if you will, from during the time of the age of Leo, which is the opposite point, when the Sphinx and Atlanteans did come into Egypt. Now, there's a lot of controversy about that because we can't really prove that Atlanteans came into Egypt and colonized it in a certain way. But there are levels of different historical timelines in Egypt. And that's one of the things that I talk about. Just about everyone right now, if you watch the internet or on social media at all, has heard that there's amazing things going on in Giza in terms of ground penetrating radar on one end of things. And also the idea of SARS, which is this radar, I don't know what else to call it, that is in space that these two Italian scientists have worked on. And they've actually said that they found an entire underground city beneath the Giza Plateau. Now, there's all of that archaeological, even the unorthodox archaeology stuff is going on alongside the actual real archaeology. A man I've worked with really closely for many years, John Anthony West, talked about the Sphinx being much, much older than the pyramids, and it was kind of there. No one really knows how old the Great Pyramid is, no matter what they say. We really cannot prove anything about the Great Pyramid. So all of this new, let's call it Aquarian Age technology that's coming in may give us some more insight on one level. But again, why do you want to go and be there now? Because if you think about it, your body is tuning itself into these frequencies. And so if you work in any type of metaphysical healing modality, or if you're at least interested in spiritual work or want to know about the real timeline of the planet Earth and what's happening, then these are all reasons to go to Egypt and do it with someone like me, for instance, because number one, I've been studying this and working there for over 30 years. And then to go with someone like Julieta, who has worked very much in the physical level of working with healing modalities, psychic work, all kinds of new and evolved ways of working with the human mind and psychology and physicality. So what we're doing is we're learning how to be better humans, and we're evolving at the same time. So this is very important. It's like Egypt is this, it's kind of like this mother lode of everything that Western mystery traditions hold true, whether it's magic, healing, goddess work, you name it. It's like Egypt was the beginning of it in the Western traditions, not the Far East, not India, not Chinese, but the Western magical esoteric traditions. So going to Egypt and studying it from that perspective, again, my friend John Anthony West, who's passed away now, used to call it the symbolist theory of ancient Egypt. So we have that level of Egypt that we look at and do. Then we also have the idea of the temples being aligned astrologically with certain constellations and star openings, which is really, really important right now, because in the spring of 2026, we have some amazing astrological configurations happening. First of all, the planets Saturn and Neptune, which have a lot to do with the evolution of consciousness and having a spiritual body in the material plane. In other words, it's like, how can you work with your light body more effectively? Okay, Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries in March of 2026 will give us it's kind of like a key, like having an ATM card to access certain frequencies. And what better place to access that? Now it's going to go on for years. It's not just in March 2026, but to actually really be there to receive that energy is really powerful. And so that's why I chose the date of spring equinox 2026 to be at the Sphinx, number one. There's a lot of people who do private time. There's a lot of metaphysical groups that go. But one of the things that's really important is to pick your dates astrologically, which is something that I've always done and will continue to do. And last November, I actually just came back from Egypt. I was there in November. For the full moon, it was November 4th. It was also the grand opening of the new Grand Egyptian Museum. But we had private time at the Sphinx, and the full moon was just gorgeous. It was amazing. And sitting there that night, we had private time during the day of that day, full moon that night. And it was this feeling like the electrical, the energy was just like palatable. You could feel it, you could smell it, you could taste it. And I thought, oh, this is the parallel reality. This is a dimensional shift that people talk about. And it's like, if you're aware of it, like maybe not in everyday reality, going to work or sitting at your desk or whatever, working on your computer, but this idea of being in a place where it's just like open, it's like that parallel doorway is there, the gateway is there. And the message I got was to come back for spring equinox. I wasn't sure if I was going to come back in March to go this time, but it was just so strong. It was like, and then the message was the star goddesses are returning. Now, I'm thinking that they're not really returning. It's like they've always been there. It's just we're remembering them. And there's something about this divine feminine energy that's so important now. It's like the antidote to all of the crap that's out there. And yeah, unfortunately, the crap in the sludge is not going to go away. And it's not just going to like magically disappear on planet Earth. But what's going to happen is there are these openings, these gateways, these portals in time where if you can kind of just tune into that, and you don't have to go to Egypt to tune into it, but it's easier. Quite frankly, it's the easiest place on the planet, and I've traveled everywhere in my many years on this planet. And the thing about Egypt is like you just get there, and it's like wow, it's really it's an enlightening place to go. And it's not like you have to spend all of your time in meditation or sitting in the temples. It's like this energy that's there. But you yourself have to be open to receiving that energy and knowing what it's about. And that's partly what we facilitate on how to do that. And we start maybe on phone call or Zoom calls, maybe a month before we go, to just do certain meditations before we leave. And then also when we're there, I'll be doing little talks before we get to some of the major sites and places. So you have an introduction to what it is. I'm not, like a hierophant or someone who says you must feel this. And if you don't feel it, then, you failed. But it's more like what you bring to the table is really, really important. And it will enhance the gifts that you already have that you're working on. Anything you wanted to add to that, Julia?
No, I just want to, when I came back from Egypt, the first time I went with you was back in 2017. And when I tell people my experience of being in Egypt, especially to people who had been there before, they always say, like, you had the trip that I wanted to have. And, because they just chose to go on whatever random tour. And, this is why I always say, like, you can see Egypt like it's a museum, or you can experience what Egypt really is. And, for those of us who are energy sensitive, like from the moment I stepped off the plane in Egypt, like it just hit me. Like I even had this, I've said, like, how do people live here? Like, it's just like this energy all of the time. So even if you're not innately sensitive to these things, it is so strong and powerful there that it is the easiest place to open up to that. And, you mentioned the sacred feminine, and that's one of the stories that I've shared. Was one evening before I went to bed, Isis came to me and was speaking to me about the sacred feminine, and that, it's time for women, because we have a greater connection. All of us have masculine and feminine energy, but as women, we have greater access to that sacred feminine. And it's time for all of us to wake that up within ourselves, to restore the balance of the masculine and feminine energies here on Earth. And but when you're over there, all of the energy of the space and the energies inside the temples and the different spaces, it just opens you up that much more easily. And so, even on that trip, you said to me, you're having the experience on your first time that most people wish they could have. And the voice in my head just automatically said, I can help people with that. And so that's part of me. Like, I just want to go back because I love being over there and being in that energy. But also just supporting other people in having that experience and opening up to that themselves. And so here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. Because once it's like being a facilitator, it's like we're facilitating the experience for people. We're not dictating the experience. It's like, okay, I'm opening the door for you. You walk in the doorway and you get out of it what you need. However, I hold certain codes inside myself that I was born with that have to do with ancient Egypt. And so that's an access point that maybe, not someone else who's going might have. They might have different codes. So it's like, I believe that the people who go on trips are drawn the same way you go to a healer or a counselor or an astrologer, because you're drawn to that energy. It's like attracts like. So usually on these tours, you'll find people who are very dedicated in terms of what it is on their spiritual journey, their healing work. It's like that evolutionary spirit of being better human beings, especially women now who are finding the goddess in their everyday life and how to work with that energy. It's like I said, they're like, especially the goddesses that I have worked with in the past a lot are Isis, Sekhmet, the four goddesses, the four directions of the wheel: Sekhmet, Isis, Nephthys, and Hathor. And now the idea of these star goddesses coming in to like expand that. Yes, we still have Isis, we still have Hathor, because they are connected to the stars and connected with planets. Because Sirius is connected to Isis, Hathor is connected to the Pleiadians and the Pleiades, and Sekhmet is the eye of Ra, having to do with the sun. She's the daughter of the sun. And then there's two new ones that came in very strongly to work with this time, and that is the goddess Seshat, who has this, it's like an inverted 7-petaled star figuration over her head. And what that's showing, and it comes out of her crown chakra and extends up, and it's showing us that we have more chakras to work with. It's like this is coming from something that's like a galactic center of being. And the goddess Nut, this cosmic sky mother Nut, who is the galactic center, her stars, the Milky Way, and extending over the earth. And the Egyptians took that very, very seriously, the ancient Egyptians, because they knew everything was about the constellations and about building on earth in alignment with the constellations to have these sacred spaces, which had to do with the ley lines and the grid all around the planet. As above, so below. So we're looking at this, and then there's a lot going on right now in terms of the news with this comet-like entity known as 3IA, 3i Atlas, which I kind of call it Third Eye Atlas, because it is really all about expanding the third eye. And so this idea of expansion, when I was in Egypt in November, Third Eye Atlas had just come close to Venus. And so there was this huge heart expansion going on with that full moon in Taurus. It was really amazing. And when we're at the Giza Plateau in the spring, right around spring equinox, it's going to be coming as close to possible as the planet Jupiter, which is expansion of consciousness and really exploring whole new worlds and whole new territories. And that's to do with our inner exploration. Is we're being called to be more than just third dimensional beings. It's like that third dimensional stuff is really not that it's so people say, well, we're just shifting out of it. Well, we are, but we're shifting out of it a lot slower, because it's dense. So the density is what holds things back, and the density is what keeps things from just, I guess, use the word ascension. People talk about ascension a lot, and ascension just means it's like holding more light, so you raise your frequency. And so what we're doing on this trip is we're learning how to access more light frequency, more information. It's going into these temples. It's like, especially when I talk about the mysteries at Abydos and Dendera specifically, it's like we're doing a mystery school without walls. It's like we're learning from the ancients themselves and what they taught. Some of it's still inscribed on the temple walls, and some of it's it's a lineage of passed down information. You're not going to find it in books. And so whether you're a devotee of Isis or Hathor or someone who channels information or psychic, or you receive your own information, it's like you want to be open to what these star goddesses are imparting to you now, because this is your own soul's remembrance of lineages that you have had in other lifetimes and come in with now to kind of like, put this tapestry all together. there's, especially with the ending of the Saturn and Neptune cycle at 29 degrees of Pisces, which ends just before spring of 2026, when the wheel turns into 0 degrees. They call it the world point, 0 degrees of Aries. That's when everything begins again. It's like you reset the computer, you reset everything. And so that cosmic reset could be very painful on many levels if you're not tuned into this certain, I'm not saying it's like better than something else. I'm just saying that if you've come in to learn about spirituality and become more of a spiritual being on the material plane in this lifetime, then this is something that really will call to you. And these goddesses, from what I've talked to people now since I've been coming back, since I've been back in November, it's like they're having dreams. I had one woman tell me that she's had a little statue by her bed for ages. That was a gift. One of the goddesses, I believe it was Sekhmet, she was gifted. A friend of hers went to Egypt, and since maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the statue has been turning on her bedside by itself. So she called me and she said, "What's that about?" And I said, "Well, you could be being called. I mean, just meditate on it and see what that means." But there's all kinds of signs and wonders happening. And this third eye atlas wasn't even visible to the human condition until July of 2025. So it's something that came right in from the galactic center, from the belly of Nut, from the Milky Way. When we stand in Dendera Temple and we look up at the ceiling, we're looking at the belly of Nut birthing the sun and birthing Hathor. So something birthed that we could see in July of this year. And it's coming around for its last tour around spring equinox. And so it passed Mars, and they had the big peace agreement thing going on in the Middle East. Then it passed Venus, which was this beautiful heart expansion of consciousness with the Pleiadian energy. And now Jupiter is going to be something that, again, it feels like has to do with expansion of consciousness, whatever that means to you. And again, people have been talking about, because I'm an astrologer, I talk to people every day about what kind of life changes they want to make, and what can they do to be different. What can they do different in the sense of living their true soul path? Maybe not something that they've been stuck in for years, but what is it? What's the path? The energy that's coming in is about opening up and really accessing energy to make that soul path real for yourself without so much limitations. But we're kind of like caught right now with the Saturn and Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces in the backwash of the old. It's like it's not quite gone yet, and we are seeing a lot of things collapsing in the moment. However, there is this sense of like, almost like, you're like afraid to be excited, but there is this excitement. And so this time of the year, especially this week, people start thinking about, oh, well, what are my New Year's resolutions? What are my intentions? What do I want to do differently? So if one of your intentions is to go to Egypt, that's what I'm saying. The timing for it to go this spring is amazing. And in general, Egypt's very busy right now. They've had more tourists this year than I think they've had in like the last 20. But the idea is that everybody's waking up to it on some level, right? Even if the level that people are getting is like, oh, I'm just going to go and, go see the new museum, or, now it's like Egypt's everywhere. I can't pick up a newspaper or look online or see any. I mean, we're seeing ads on television now. It's crazy because that energy can't be stopped. And so on one level, yes, there's this commercial side of things and people going to Egypt, and that's great. The idea is, if you're on the spiritual wave of this, the wave is never going to be more open than it will be at the spring equinox. Now, over the next 13 or 14 years, we're going to be assimilating what that wave is and how it's going to work. And so I've always been, for better or worse, a wave catcher, kind of like going in there and move, first with the wave as it comes in. But there are people who are going to come in later. And so if you're the one of the wave catchers or the way showers or however you want to frame that, then your energy is needed and you're going to be called on to like move up and move into the world the way you see it for yourself, how you envision it. So again, whether you're doing vision boards for the new year or intentions or goal setting, there's so many different ways to approach this. But I would say this is the time, if you've ever wanted to put Egypt on your treasure map, put it on there because the timing is impeccable. And before we add, did you want to add anything, Julietta, before I talk about the itinerary a little bit?
No, I was just gonna say if Egypt is it all in there, like catching your awareness, speaking to you, it is trying to reach out to you and get you to come and visit. Like it's, if there's any little bit of you that um, is working on, that spiritual growth and trusting your intuition, like if Egypt is popping up in your awareness in any way, shape, or form, it is Egypt reaching out to you and asking you to come. And like Mary said, there couldn't be a better time to come than now. And you have to follow that voice that's calling you and trust your intuition and just know that, when I look back on my life and look at the things that have been really transformational in my being and who I am and how I see the world, like going to Egypt is definitely on that list of things that, yes, prior to going there, I was already very intuitive, tuned into, did a lot of energy work and was on the spiritual path. But, going to Egypt is like that, putting that spiritual journey in hyper mode. Like it's just fast forward will leap you forward, much more so than anything else out there.
And that's the thing. I mean, I always say Egypt is for everyone. It's like whatever your heart's desire is, you're going to find it in Egypt. So it's like there's all different ways to access those points. But it's spiritual, especially if you're into goddess work, and so many women are waking up. Julietta, you do beautiful work with the goddess energy and introducing women to being more of themselves, more of their authentic selves. And so this is so as a small group, I have a tendency to take smaller groups because we move through the temples faster. You'll see that there's groups now coming with like maybe 50, 100 people in a group. I mean, it's crazy. And they, have to stand in a big, pod, listening to the guide and move as a pod from one place to the next. But we don't do that. For some reason, really tiny, but I'm fast when we're in those temples and we just like scoot into where we need to go. And there are energy places, okay, energy vortexes in each temple. And those are the places that I really know, like the back of my hand. And so I can take you to those places. We don't really have to go like from point A at the beginning of the temple to point B to the end of the temple and listening to all the history. I know the history and I'll tell you. And if you're interested in it, I have a book list that's a mile long that you can read when you come home. There's also videos you can watch before you go. But the idea is if you're going on an energetic tour, we're going to be there to kind of, like I said, catch that energy and just work with it. And I'll be doing little talks all along the way so that I can give you the background of these goddesses and the temples themselves, because the temples are built in certain areas to take advantage of the celestial harmony above. And so much of Egypt is, I want to say, guided by astrology that it almost gets boring because everything has an astrological and astronomical alignment. And the Egyptology guides, who are very, very schooled in what they know, and a lot of them have PhDs in history and Egyptology, they don't know the esoteric side of things. So it's kind of like, I always say, if we're with a guide, it's like you have your left brain and your right brain. Like your left brain takes in as much information as you want to hear, and then boom, you turn it off. And then you come find me and we go find these places. There are many of them. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in Karnak Temple, where there's some places that are off the beaten track there that not a lot of people go to that I'd like to visit, special goddess-oriented places. We'll go to Hatshepsut's temple on the West Bank, Deir el-Bahari. I'm going to find out if Nefertari's tomb was just closed last year. If the tomb of Nefertari, which is the most beautiful tomb in Valley of the Queens, actually, like the whole Valley of the Kings even, she was the wife of Ramses II. And she was high priestess of Isis and high priestess of Hathor. If that tomb, if the tomb is open, then I'd like to take people there. And that's been closed for a while now. There's some real special things to do there. Dendera is awesome. We're going to spend basically, most of the day at Dendera Temple, instead of most people going in for an hour and then leaving it and going back to Luxor on the train track of how people see temples there. Then we're going on to Abydos, and we're going to be spending 2 nights in Abydos, which is unusual because, again, people go to these places and spend like an hour at most. And Abydos is the mystery school of Isis and Osiris. And it was one of the main, it's like one of the oldest temples in ancient Egypt in terms of the pilgrimage site. And there's so much there. It's just really a lot of wonderful stuff. So it kind of like takes 2 days to kind of rest into that and process it. And Dendera is the mystery school of Hathor, the Blue Lotus, the aromatherapy, astrology, just like everything in that temple, which is one of my favorites. So we'll spend more time in those places than most people do. And then, of course, we have the Sphinx and the Hall of Records in Giza. We'll be looking at that in terms of like our own remembrance. It's like Edgar Cayce talked a lot about the Hall of Records and the Atlantean Hall of Records and how the Atlanteans went to different places as the continent was breaking up 15,000 years ago. And so they deposited records in these places. The Giza Plateau is one of them. They say the Sphinx guards it. Will be right there at the right paw of the Sphinx, where he said the temple of the Atlantean records is. Also, the Yucatan Peninsula contains some, and there's some in Tibet. So there's different, if you want to call it mythologies around Edgar Cayce, but you can read a lot about Edgar Cayce, and I'll be talking about some of that as it relates to Egypt. Also Saqqara, which I know is one of Julietta's favorite places. We're going to be spending time at Saqqara, which was the temple beautiful of ancient Egypt, but also the history of that goes back to the Atlantean records and how Imhotep, who was this great architect, magician, high priest, and physician, I mean, just kind of like the Merlin magician of ancient Egypt, built the stepped pyramid of Saqqara for the pharaoh back then in the 3rd dynasty. But we don't really know who Imhotep was. And even though archaeologists are looking for his tomb out there, and they have been zealously looking for it forever, there's something about that. Like, it just feels like those, if you don't have the right codes, and also, who knows, he may have been one of those adepts that ascended, and there is no tomb. Or maybe there's an empty tomb. I mean, it's really interesting. And when you're out there, it's way out in the desert, and you just get this feeling of just like timelessness out there.
And maybe he went to the Stargate that I saw behind the step pyramid.
That place is a definite Stargate. So, again, and that was impromptu because I wasn't telling Julietta, oh, go sit there because there's a Stargate and you're just going to like feel all this energy coming in from who knows where. And I had gone underneath the pyramid. I had gone under it to explore some stuff underneath. And when I came back to that, oh my God, I just went to this, I mean, it's really interesting how everyone's personal energy works there. So yeah, I'll never forget that. I'm like, wow. And there's like all this blue halo around her. It was just like, was just amazing. So yeah, I mean, those are the personal things that each person has, that nugget of experience that's just theirs and very, very potent. So yeah, I love that. And it's one of those things where um, we're looking at all these wonderful esoteric things and astrological alignments and goddess energy and pharaohs and history, but then there's a lot of fun too. It's like there's times where we're just having fun, and it's just spontaneous, like what goes on, and you meet people and you make friends, and some of the Egyptians that are there are just like, I've known them for years, and it's like family. You just feel like this family of Egypt that you're part of.
You walk around with Mary and everybody's going, Miss Mary, Miss Mary. Like Miss Mary's a celebrity. Everybody knows who she is.
Well, yeah, when you go there twice a year for over 30 years, yeah. And I've seen, kids like I know their grandparents, and these kids were babies when they weren't even born. They weren't even, sparks in their parents' eyes yet. The parents weren't born yet. So yeah, I mean, it's been going there a long time. So, but again, Egyptians are very, very hospitable people, and it's very safe. That's the first question people ask me. It's like, is it safe? Yes, it's extremely safe. Don't worry about the food. Food is amazing.
As someone who has traveled in many developing nations, probably the safest I've ever felt is in Egypt. And, like I lived in Caracas, Venezuela for a year. I've, been in Rio, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, the list goes on. And I speak the language there, and I still you have to be really, really careful there. Egypt, I don't speak the language, and energetically it feels safe, and it is safe. And I've taken the train there, I've taken an Uber there, been so because yes, that is probably the most frequently asked question, is it safe to go there? And 100%. So scratch that off your list if that's one of your worries as to whether you should go.
Yeah, and it's very protecting. It's on a physical 3D level. It's very protecting because we go along the Nile, and we don't really go outside of the perimeter of the Nile and the pyramids. But it's also protected on a spiritual level. I mean, again, it's like when you go in with the right frame of mind, it's like you're in this protected space, a ring pass knot. So it's all about your intention and going in there with the right feeling. And that's something that Julieta and I help facilitate for you. And then there's all this fun stuff if you want to do it. There's the camel rides and the balloons and the shopping, and all of that's there for you. And it's your time, so you can be up from dawn till midnight if you wanted to find things to do in Egypt. It's all there. I always say the only thing I ask is we don't break any laws while we're there. So other than that, we have ways to do whatever it is that you like to do in Egypt. So yeah, anything else you wanted to?
Well, I think you started talking about it, but then I emphasized the safety because yes, that is always like the number one question. But you had started talking about the food, and
yeah, people have no problem eating there. Even if you have dietary preferences, when you fill out the registration form, I ask you what they are, so we're aware of it. But really, the food there is mostly organic. It's very, very fresh. I don't know anyone, even myself, and I'm an extremely picky kind of eater in a way, and I'm a vegetarian. There's no problem there. Like whatever diet you're on or whatever thing you can't eat, like there's something that's you can substitute. Plus the restaurants are excellent. Like there's like really amazing 5-star restaurants in the hotels that we go to, all kinds of food, plus the traditional food that the local food restaurants that we go to. The only thing you don't do is you just don't drink the water. We provide bottled water for you on the buses, and there's bottled water provided for you in all the hotels. But that's pretty much the rule everywhere nowadays. It's like, most people don't drink bottled water in the United States now. So it just depends. And, I give lots of information when people register, which is about what to bring, how to dress. The weather during the spring in Egypt in March, it's going to be like being in Florida without the humidity. So it's going to be like 80s, maybe even 90s, warm and windy. So you don't need to bring a lot of clothing, but you bring light clothing and comfortable clothing because it can get very warm. Other than that, everything I do send out so people have all the information. The dollar is very good in Egypt right now. It's like 47 to $1. So if you change $100, you're going to get 4,700 Egyptian pounds back, which will probably last you 5 years over there. Because, and the thing is, most people take American dollars. So, I just tell people to bring a lot of small money, which is like $1, $5, $10 bills, because you don't get change in Egyptian money, but you can pay for whatever you want in American money. I'm sorry, you don't get change in American. They'll only give you change in Egyptian. So again, the practical logistics are very simple over there, and we go through all that when you register. But again, the esoteric idea is it calling you, and what's the next step? The next step is you contact me or you contact Julietta. I'm sure she has all the information there in the podcast info, because you want to do two things. You want to make sure you have a valid passport for 6 months after your travel time, and that you call me in terms of having a registration intake call, and then you register with me or Julietta. And that's basically how it's going to work. And the next thing you know, you're going to be on the plane to Egypt in March, which not that far away. So
I know it is getting so fast, so fast. And just letting everybody know the cutoff, because you can't sign up for this. We laugh. We're in last minute Lauderdale here, and everybody wants to wait till the very last minute to commit to anything. And the cutoff date for this is it February 20th? Is that what you said?
February 20th, because we're leaving, you have to be in Egypt March 9th. So all of that information is on the registration form and the itineraries that's on Julietta's website and mine. So you can find that out, and then contact us right away to just get yourself in alignment with what you need to do next if you're going to go. And all the payment plan, how to pay, all of that's in the registration form. So again, I say Egypt's the gift that keeps on giving. Give yourself the best Christmas gift in the world and go to Egypt. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on this morning and sharing a little of the magic of Egypt with us. And yes, the links to find out more information will be in the show notes. And if you have any questions, reach out to myself or Mary, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. And if you're thinking about it, if Egypt's calling you, answer the call. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Julietta. Thank you. See you all in Egypt.
Yay! Bye-bye.